So let's be honest, for most people, a cesarean section is not their preferred method of childbirth. So let's go over my top 5 tips to avoid your baby coming out that sunroof exit. By now we all know that rate of C-section, it is constantly climbing. In the US, it's going to vary state to state. It goes from a low of around 20% all the way up to a high of around 40%. But why is this happening? Why are we having more and more C-sections? There are a number of reasons why your provider might suggest a cesarean section. Some of them are going to include your labor slowing down or stalling. This is known as labor dystocia. Another reason might be that your baby's heart rate is not looking as happy as it once was. Maybe it's dipping with contractions. Maybe it's going down and staying down. But there are other reasons, such as maybe you have a breech baby, or your baby is bum down instead of head down, or you have a suspected big baby. These are all reasons it can happen, but the 2 reasons that are the most common for first-time moms having a cesarean section are baby's heart rate dropping and your labor slowing down or stopping. First thing I want to bring up that is very obvious to me, and likely also very obvious to the people who know and love you, sometimes cesarean sections are necessary. There are lots of times where a cesarean section really benefited the health of mom or the health of the baby. But if you had a cesarean section, chances are you're like, was there something I could have done to avoid that cesarean section? My name is Tina. I'm a certified perinatal nurse, so I have seen lots of cesarean sections in my time as a labor and delivery nurse. So I am going to give you my top 5 tips on ways that might tip the scale towards a vaginal delivery over a cesarean section. My first tip, and this is a tip for any kind of birth, is to go into it as educated and prepared as you possibly can be. You know that phrase, knowledge is power? I am fairly certain that was written specifically for childbirth. So write up a birth wish list. And I say wish list over a plan because by now we know that birth is one of the least plannable events on the entire planet. But write something out for your plan for a vaginal birth, but also write something out for a cesarean section, because that way, if your birth does end up in the operating room, you'll be more prepared about what to expect, what to hear, what to smell, what to feel, and knowledge is power. So read all the books, watch all the videos, take a childbirth class if you can, and take it with your partner. Take it with the person that's going to be with you, because it's going to be beneficial to both of you for you both to know what to expect. Now, a quick word about social media. If you are getting information about childbirth from social media, first off, please make sure it's from a reputable source, but also take what you see and hear and bring it to your trusted provider and use it as a stepping stool for a conversation between the two of you, because ultimately they know you and your pregnancy the best. So they'll be able to tell you what is truth, what is fact, and what is maybe not the best idea for you and not the best idea for your baby. Tip number 2 is to labor at home as long as you can. Now, why would I, as a labor and delivery nurse that works in a hospital, suggest that to you? Well, it's because if you rock up to the hospital and you are in early labor and things are taking a long time, which by the way is actually quite normal. If you are a first-time mom, your labor should take, 18, 20, 30 hours. And even if you've had a baby, it's still going to take a fair amount of time. You're looking at around 8 to 10 hours. But if you are in the hospital and your labor is taking too long, there are some providers at some sites who might feel the urge to sort of nudge things along with some interventions like Pitocin to give you contractions that are stronger, longer, and closer together, or breaking your water to put your baby's hard head down on your cervix. Now, interventions like these with the right person at the right point in their labor can be super beneficial at causing your labor to progress in a really, really nice trajectory. But sometimes if interventions like these are introduced really early and your cervix isn't quite as far along as it might be in later labor, then these could cause some distress in you or some distress in baby. So if you're hoping to sort of avoid interventions like these, definitely chat with your provider, but laboring at home is likely going to get you to the hospital when your cervix is a little more ready to accept interventions like these in a positive way. Also, when you're at home, you feel secure and safe and comforted, and those type of attributes can really go a long way in having a positive birth outcome and to keep your labor progressing and moving forward. So if you're at home and you are feeling really, really good about how the labor is going, and then you gotta grab your bag and get in the car and go to the hospital and you're still in early labor, and now you're in a place where it's bright lights and there's people you don't know and there's people coming and going, that can actually really stall your labor out. So if you can get into a nice active labor pattern before you head to the hospital, that might keep you from heading through the operating room doors. And if you have questions on when you should go to the hospital, I mean, it's really person to person dependent, but this video up here can really give you some good tips. Also, if you have a high-risk pregnancy or your provider has told you specifically when you should go to the hospital or has given you extra instructions, as always, please go to their advice for your specific pregnancy. Next up, if it is safe for you, instead of continuous fetal heart rate monitoring, opt for intermittent or hands-on fetal heart rate monitoring. Meaning, instead of strapping those two monitors to you and watching baby's heart rate the entire time you're in hospital, opt for hands-on monitoring, which is your nurse or your staff member coming in at set intervals and listening to baby's heart rate. This is usually for about 60 seconds following a contraction. And the reason I say if it's safe for you, there are situations where continuous fetal heart rate monitoring is absolutely valid and is the safer route. Things like if you have a high-risk pregnancy from preeclampsia, or there's amniotic fluid issues, or you've had a previous C-section, or you are on Pitocin. In these situations, and some other situations as well, we really want to keep a close eye on you, and specifically a close eye on baby's heart rate and your uterine contractions. But if it is safe and you have a straightforward low-risk pregnancy, then intermittent auscultation is known to decrease your chances of having a cesarean section. And if you're wondering what any of the things you're seeing on screen while your baby's heart rate is being monitored, you can check out this video above. If we look to major medical organizations, ACOG has actually said that continuous electronic fetal heart rate monitoring has not been shown to improve outcomes for low-risk laboring women. And they have actually endorsed intermittent or hands-on monitoring as a safe and effective method to watch your baby's heart rate while you're in labor, so long as there are no complications. And that is because intermittent monitoring has been shown to decrease cesarean section rates. In 2017, Cochrane Review did a look at 12 studies, and they looked at over 37,000 people, and it was shown that intermittent monitoring decreases your chance of cesarean section by 63%. Now, these studies, they're old. They were from the 1970s and the 1980s, but we do have to remember that cesarean section rates back then, they were a lot lower than they are now. So we do have to take that information with a little bit of a grain of salt, but we do know that intermittent monitoring decreases those rates of C-sections. And we also know that intermittent monitoring means your provider or your staff or your nurse is going to be with you more often because they actually have to physically come in the room to listen to your baby's heart rate, which means you are going to have more continuous labor support. And continuous labor support is my next tip. Get a doula. That is my next tip. If it is attainable for you, hire a doula. If it is not attainable for you to hire a doula, then gather a few people and recruit them onto your labor support team. Make sure they are people that you love and trust, because then you're still going to get that one-on-one continuous positive labor support. And it's that one-on-one support that is likely going to keep you from an unnecessary cesarean section. And not only that, but it's also going to have you feel more positively about your overall childbirth experience. But let's speak specifically about doulas. What does a doula do? What a doula do? They are not a medical professional, but they are going to provide you with knowledge and advocacy and information and support for you and support for your partner. And having a doula, it has been shown to increase your chances of breastfeeding, to decrease your chances of needing an epidural, and yes, to decrease your chances of a cesarean section by upwards of 25%. They are also going to increase your chances of a spontaneous vaginal birth by around 8%. So a doula, if they are available to you, can be a really great tool in decreasing your chances of a cesarean section. And doulas are incredibly important for our Black moms and our Indigenous moms and our moms of color and our members of the LGBTQIA+ community. So please look into that or get those people on your team because they're going to go a long way for you. And my last tip is do the things you can to help produce your own natural oxytocin, because that natural oxytocin is what is going to get that labor of yours moving and progressing forward. And if we can get our own labor going, then it's less likely you're going to need those interventions we talked about in the beginning of the video, those interventions that could possibly lead you down the road to a cesarean section. So this is going to be things like being in your own home where you feel comfortable and safe and secure, or you can do nipple stimulation to increase oxytocin. This could be hand expression or using a breast pump, and being upright, moving around, getting that pelvis to change shape and angles to allow your baby to better engage, because when your baby's engaged, they're putting that pressure on the cervix. That's what's going to help you to produce more oxytocin. More oxytocin from you is going to cause your contractions to get stronger and longer and closer together and cause that cervical change. So anything that you can do to get that love hormone really circulating, that's going to be really helpful in helping to decrease your chances of a cesarean section. As I mentioned earlier in the video, some cesarean sections, they are unavoidable and they are necessary for the health and safety of you and the health and safety of your baby. And if you've had a cesarean section, just know that you're an absolute boss, okay? You might want to check out this video up here. It is all about a planned cesarean section, what you can expect from the time you walk in the doors of the hospital till you have your baby and you're off to postpartum. And I hope that you love this video. Consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.